I'm now beginning to see the police in this country as the enemy. You can be called a racist and no one can do anything about that, but you can't be called a bike nonce. If more female athletes did that, there wouldn't be an issue with trans women in sport. We destroyed the family, we destroyed God, and we destroyed the nation. Who are we to have an impact?
Ladies and gentlemen, if you have found us, welcome to the resistance. I thought I'm going to start it with that from now on, Nick, if that's okay. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Mayor and I, with I, Lindsay Khan, and the Mayor, Nick Buckley. We're in February 2025, and it's our weekly chat about what's happening in the world, specifically in the UK, and our thoughts and dreams. I don't know what I'm talking about now. I'm not very well today, Nick.
I think it's our moaning of what's going on in the world, basically.
Yes.
And our attempt at trying to think of solutions.
And in fact, I did actually send you a clip, some comments from two of our gentle listeners who basically said, you two talking about is having no impact at all, basically. Did you see that?
I did. Who are we to have an impact? You know what I mean?
I like to think we are part of the resistance.
Yeah.
And we are having some impact, if not just telling people what's happening out there. So
if you could solve our problems in the UK by starting a cheap little crappy podcast, we'd have no problems, would we?
But sometimes things do start that way. So anyway, Nick, welcome to the Mayor and I.
Thank you.
I'd like to start with an apology first, because we mentioned a few weeks ago, we were talking about Luke Littler, our British hero, darts hero. We were making a joke and we said, oh, here's Netflix version of Luke Littler, and somebody had posted a picture of a black woman throwing darts. And the joke was Netflix made a version about the Luke Littler story. But the lady in question is actually a British darts player.
Yeah, I recognised her.
And she's called Detta Hedman. And what's even more remarkable is in May 2024, she was in a quarter-final match in Denmark, representing Britain, and they wheeled in a male tranny to play against her, and she actually withdrew from the quarter-final as a protest. So Detta, fantastic work, well done, and I apologise for including you in a joke, because she's a proper British darts player, and more than that, she's taking a stand against trannies in sport as well. So I thought I'd just
well done her. If more female athletes did that, there wouldn't be an issue with trans women in sports. There just wouldn't be an issue.
Yeah. It's starting to happen, isn't it? So I had a couple of field trips last week. One was to Man United, and I'm calling it a field trip because it was with a bunch of members of the resistance, friends of mine who are members of the resistance. But I also went to a Free Speech Union event around football, because they're bringing new legislation around football now. And there was a lady there called Lindsay, I can't remember her surname, she's a lesbian, who was a member of Newcastle, who was a season ticket holder at Newcastle Football Club. And she privately, in her own time in Facebook, she was gender critical. Gender critical now means you basically don't want trannies in women's changing rooms.
It just means you know the difference between a man and a woman.
Yes.
That's what gender critical means.
Yes, it does. So she got banned from Newcastle Football Club, and by the FA as well, I think. It kind of escalates. She's now fighting with the Free Speech Union to try and get back in there. But Joey Barton was also there. Do you know Joey Barton?
I know who he is.
So that was really interesting, because he is a former footballer. I think he played for Liverpool and Man City. I'm not quite sure, actually. Apologies to anybody. But he was describing the fact he'd done some tweets recently, and he's going to end up in Crown Court having to defend himself.
Yeah.
And he was talking through it, but very matter-of-factly. But I thought, this is scandalous, isn't it?
One of the tweets was to a TV presenter, the one who's always on his bicycle cycling through London.
Jeremy Vine.
Was about him and called him a bike nonce.
Right.
And he's being taken to court for defamation because Jeremy Vine isn't a paedophile, and calling him a bike nonce means he's a paedophile, and he's being taken to court over that.
Wow.
You can be called a racist and no one can do anything about that, but you can't be called a bike nonce.
I see. It's specific, is it, that one?
The word bike nonce to me doesn't mean paedophilia. Bike nonce just means you're in love with bikes.
Yeah. I don't know what it means. But,
I don't know what it means.
But I think the scandal for me was he described a scene where he was at home with his children. His wife was out somewhere with friends for lunch. The police turned up to arrest him. And he said, I can't be arrested because he said 3 butch lesbian police women turned up. I don't know why. Presumably they got them agitated about, his comment, because he said that he says like me that he doesn't think there should be so many female commentators for men's football. And they said, we're arresting you. He said, well, I've got my young kids here. I can't
They go to social services.
That's what could have happened. He managed to get a neighbour to be. But I thought, and apparently they came over the back fence of his property as well.
As if he's a criminal.
As if he's going to
do a runner.
Yeah. And I thought, this cannot be right. Am I actually hearing this? And what was even more disturbing was the people in the audience and the panel themselves, which was Toby Young, Claire Fox, this girl Lindsay and Joey Barton. They were almost resigned to the fact that this stuff is happening now. So somebody who does a tweet, Joey Barton, who does a tweet, he has 3 police people turn up at his front door, a police person come over the back fence of his property, like he's some sort of cocaine dealer or, wife beater or something, to arrest him, taking him away from his children and into prison for tweets.
Something changed in me this weekend. I've been extremely pro-police all my life. Based in police stations, trained police officers. Last year I set up a crowdfunder to raise money for police officers injured through the riots.
I wasn't happy about that.
You weren't happy about that. Yeah. And over this weekend, my opinion has changed. I'm now beginning to see the police in this country as the enemy.
Oh, really?
And that happened with that Quran burning in Manchester City Centre.
Yes, I was going to talk about it.
I'll wait we won't talk about the incident, but I'll just talk about... you can't explain the police's behaviour now through incompetence, through lack of funding, through it's 1 or 2 silly officers making other officers do these things. It's... I can't lie to myself anymore that this is what's happening.
Yeah.
This is the complete politicization of the police in this country, and they're becoming the enemy of the people. And if you've got someone like me beginning to think that and feel that, then God help us. I can only say I have no more time for the police in this country.
Wow.
I don't see them on my side anymore.
I mean, that's a big change for you, because you and I have always disagreed on this, I think, because I've always thought the police are working against us all the time and are complicit with the government in their behaviour.
I don't want to believe it.
Yeah. But when you hear stories like the Joey Barton thing, the Quran burning we'll get to later as well, that you start to think they know what they're doing. They know what those people that turned up at Joey Barton's house knew they were turning up for tweets. They weren't turning up reluctantly. He said they were quite hostile to him. And then as you say, this incident in Manchester this weekend, where I don't know how many police people turned up. There were loads turned up.
I reckon it was 30.
Yeah. For one guy burning a book.
Yeah. And some of them were armed police.
Oh, I didn't know that.
They had the red things on them, which means they're actually armed police.
Bloody hell.
That might not be because they were armed. That might be because they were naval. I don't know why, but no, I've had enough for British police now. I've had enough.
I mean, we're going to talk about the Quran burning in we're going to talk about multiculturalism later. But just one thing I wanted to mention, which I thought was really interesting, because there was a guy there who came over to say hello to me because he recognised me from this podcast.
Right, excellent.
And that's starting to happen a bit more often when we go to these events. Obviously, there's more likely to be people there who recognise us. He said, I really like you, not so sure about that, Nick Buckley. He said he always appears to be drunk every time on the show. I said,
and he'd be spot on.
But whilst he was talking, and he was going on about Tommy Robinson and stuff like that, and the panel didn't really want to address Tommy Robinson for whatever reason. But he said, I'm a Christian. And then the woman, Lindsay, the lesbian lady on the stage said, cheered or something, and says, no, she said, Jesus is king. And he went, hallelujah. I can't remember. There was some sort of Christian exchange between them. I've told you about my Christianity and the fact I now consider myself a Christian now, and it seems to be running in parallel with the resistance, with the anti-woke and this movement, this embracing of Christianity. And I'm reminded again of a friend of mine who lives in Leeds who rang me the other day and said, I saw you on the podcast, and I said, why did I tell you about it? He said, no, that's what I watch. And he has on his back a massive tattoo of Christ on the cross, basically. He's highly religious and he talks about religion all the time. When I first met him, probably 20 years ago, he didn't talk about religion all the time. What is causing that undercurrent of Christianity alongside our movement, if you like? What do you think is causing that? Because it resonated when they you know what I mean? And nobody kind of laughed or tittered when they said it. It was kind of seriously said to each other and accepted in the room.
And that's because for many decades now, we've been lost as a people in the West. We've been lost, we've been directionless, we've embraced different silly ideologies like communism, like LGBT lunacy, eco-lunacy. And I think people are wanting a direction, and they're returning back to what they think created harmony across Europe, which was Christianity as well. And it wasn't perfect, but I think they're looking back, also through rose-tinted glasses as well, and but going, things were better when we believed in God. I'm going to believe in God again, and I'm going to follow the Christian religion, and I'll see if my life improves. And their lives do improve, because most people who follow any religion are usually happier than people who don't follow religion anyway, because it answers questions, it takes some responsibility off your shoulders. So people in the West are returning to Christianity and are not afraid to tell people that now. 20, 30 years ago, you may have been a Christian, but you never would have told anybody because it was irrelevant. It was personal. We're getting to a stage now people are openly saying, I'm Christian, and other people are going, good for you, because so am I.
If I go back to the 80s when I was at university, if one of the people in our year had said, I'm a Christian, you would have gone, woo. You know, you're a weirdo or whatever, that back off. But I think you're right. I think now when people say they're Christian, I think it's generally accepted as a reasonable thing. Is it also that the very vacuum that's been created by us stepping away from Christianity has allowed Islam to step in as well? Is that part of it, do you think? They recognise that there's always been this battle between Christianity and Islam, hasn't there, over centuries.
All religions are battling each other,
But this surge of Islamic behaviour that's washed over us in the past decade, was that allowed in by the fact there was a vacuum left by Christianity, people no longer being embracing Christianity? These are very heavy religious questions for
I don't think
a Wednesday
so,
afternoon.
Because we didn't let Islam into Europe. We allowed migration into Europe. So we didn't point out to only Islamic nations, say you can come here. We lost control of the borders and people flooded in. It just turns out that some of the poorest countries in the world are Islamic countries, so want to come here. The fact we lost control of our borders and the fact we allowed mass immigration can, I think, be traced back to the fact that we're now run by weak men. And then why are we weak men? Because we destroyed the family, we destroyed God, and we destroyed the nation. So losing our religion is a secondary answer to why these things have happened. It's part of why it happened. But it's not a direct correlation there.
Okay, I'll come back to my second field trip later, which was going to Man United with some of the resistance. And it was a dreadful match, but I don't want to talk about it. But then
for some reason, my wife now is interested in football because we was out Sunday afternoon.
Oh, yeah. She was looking at the score.
Kept telling me the score. And I had to say to her, I don't care. Yeah, but Lindsay's probably gone. I went, he may have gone, but I don't need you on your phone every 10 minutes updating me on the Man U game. I was there.
It was terrible. Your wife's right. It was terrible. It was embarrassing to be there, actually, and embarrassing to take people who'd never really been before. But anyway, that's another story. I'm going to talk about Trump later as well, but I was thinking we're seeing a lot of strength from Trump. I sent you before I came here a list of the things he's done in the first 14 days. We'll go through it later, hopefully.
Oh, it's been 14 days.
Only 14 days. Yeah, phenomenal.
Well, you just blew my mind.
Yeah, he's only been in 2 weeks, and what he's done is just unbelievable.
Oh, once you put it in those terms, I'm even more impressed. 14 days.
So I was thinking about Trump's strengths, and I thought, never mind Trump's strengths. What about our strengths in the UK? And I thought I'd go through our strengths in the UK. And of course, one of our main strengths that everybody's always telling us about is multiculturalism, isn't it?
Yep.
So I've got 4 quick examples of how multiculturalism is our strength. These are recent examples. A Gambian Ebu Jazze raped a woman in the UK, obviously. And rather than being deported, he's just won a substantial award of compensation for mistreatment in the courts. A Jamaican drug dealer who beats his partner, he's been allowed to stay in the UK, he's not been deported, because his gender-questioning daughter only speaks to him.
Yep, and it's not his biological daughter. It's
is
his
it not?
partner's child. So it's even worse, I know.
A Somali doctor in Nuneaton.
And no wonder she's gender confused, because she's looking at this guy beat her mum up, and this girl's probably going, well, I don't want to be a girl if that's what happens to you.
That's what happens.
Yeah.
I'll get the crap beat out of me by some random bloke. Yeah. I better be nice to him, otherwise he'll do the same to me.
Yeah. I wonder why she's confused.
A Somali doctor in Nuneaton, and this is unusual because most Somalians, as we know, are unemployed.
Yeah.
but this guy's actually employed, which is great, and he's a doctor. Sharmaki Maxamed. He had 52 indecent images of children, 28 of which were category A, and I don't want to go into what category A is, but I think we've discussed
the worst.
It's the worst. He was given a suspended 10-month sentence. So this is not even a British citizen now. This isn't Hugh. What's he called? Hugh Edwards. This is a Somali doctor. And finally, Mohammed Shayaya, who I don't know where he's from, 18, raped a girl under 16 in Plymouth. He got 2 years He got a 2-year detention. 2-year suspension, and was told to pay £41.
Yep. 2-year suspension.
Yes.
Tweet online, you'll go to jail.
Yes.
Rape someone, you get a 2-year suspended sentence and have to pay £41.
41 quid.
Which is called a victim surcharge, which goes to the victim.
Yes, it was to help.
You can't get a prostitute for £41.
I wouldn't know, Nick, but... Yeah.
So you might as well just rape people. It's cheaper than a prostitute. Mental.
It's cheaper to rape somebody than pay for a prostitute in this British land that we live in. It's a really good point. And I want to contrast that to something we've just been talking about. This weekend, or last weekend gone, whilst United were losing, a man was arrested in Manchester. I don't want to give his name because I think we need to be careful with this guy. We want to protect him. He was arrested for burning a copy of the Quran. The police decided to call it a racially aggravated public order offence. And the police also, and this is probably why you're turning on the police as well, they released his name, his date of birth and his location to the press. So he is now if he does get out, I think he's still in jail. If he does get out of jail...
He's out now.
Is he out now?
I've been dealing with the Free Speech Union about him today.
Oh, right, okay, because I knew the Free... Oh, great, that's great, because I knew the Free Speech Union were involved in it. That's great. So he's in danger, this guy, because the Muslims, the Islamists now know where he lives as well, basically.
Do you know why he was burning the Quran?
Because there was an incident.
His friend, who he knows, in Sweden...
Salwan Momika,
was burning the Quran and got shot dead.
Yes.
So that's why he was doing it in Manchester.
Yes.
So we know the Islamic nutcases will kill you for burning the Quran. And the police release his name, date of birth, and roughly the area where he lives.
Yeah.
You could. That's why I've had enough. That could be classed as a death sentence.
Yes, I agree. I
had enough. That's a step too far for me.
It's a really good point, Nick, isn't it? I mean, what is the difference between what's happened to him now and what happened to Peter Lynch? Basically, sentenced to death by our authorities. Basically, Peter Lynch killed himself in jail. This guy now. his location, his name has been given to out there, and we know that if you burn the Quran in public, there's a chance you can die for it.
And the reason why they released his name and details is a warning to everybody else not to do it. That's not the job of the police. It's not the job's police to socially condition us into certain ways. It's a job of the police to enforce the law. Now, if the police think this was racially motivated, then he should be arrested, but not then punished further by having his details released to the press. Now, that's a step too far. It doesn't take 30 officers to arrest him. The real crime would have been going across Greater Manchester on a Saturday afternoon, and they can afford 30 police officers to turn up to arrest one man who was burning his own book.
You're allowed to burn your own book, for Christ's sake.
It's his own property. It's his own book. It's his property. He wasn't doing anything else. He was burning a book he owns in protest. I don't see how you can class that as racially motivated. If you were screaming, kill all the Muslims, burn down the mosques as you're burning the Quran, then I can see that being racially motivated. But he wasn't doing any of that.
It's effectively a form of peaceful protest. The guy was aware that, I didn't know is it his friend in Sweden?
He said he knows him.
He knows him. That news was also this week. This guy was murdered in Sweden, and he'd publicly gone out and burnt the Quran, and then the Islamists murdered. I don't know if they even caught the guys who killed him. And this was in response to that. So he was just trying to show solidarity with that guy. But you're right. He wasn't committing a crime. It was his own property. He was burning a Quran. If somebody, more importantly, Nick, if somebody went and burnt a Bible in Piccadilly Gardens, would anybody do anything?
No.
But
what happens if you want to burn the Communist Manifesto? Can we get arrested for that now? Can feminists burn their own bras anymore?
I don't know.
So
I don't know where we are.
We live in a society now where we may know the law, but we have no idea if that law actually applies to us or not, because of this 2, 3, 4 tier system we're living in. We have no idea day to day if we're breaking the law. It used to be very simple in this country. It was black and white. But over the last couple of decades, it's become so murky that we don't know where the line is anymore. And that, I think, to a certain extent, is intentional. Because when you don't know where the line is, you don't say anything.
You don't do anything.
But when you know where the line is, you know you can go up to that line and you're fine. But when you don't know where the line is, you don't protest. You don't say anything. You become a coward. You're easy to control because you daren't say anything because you may be arrested. And we're becoming a police state.
I can see you, since we last met, I can see you're pretty angry, actually.
Oh, I can't explain how that incident over the weekend has not only annoyed me, scared me, but radicalised me.
It's opened your eyes.
It really, really has.
I think you've crossed another bridge here, haven't you?
I think I have,
you have, which is interesting. Because I think in the past you've always kind of said, oh, well, the police, well, they try and do a best job, but they're constrained by this, that and the other. And you always seem to think the best of people a lot of the time. But I think maybe there's a Rubicon being crossed here for you.
Oh, absolutely. I think the top of every police force in the country should be sacked. If I became mayor tomorrow, well, when I ran for mayor last year, my idea was to give the chief constable time to impress me and change.
But you wouldn't do that now.
He'd be gone day one. That's the only person I can sack. He'd be gone day one because we have to stamp this out. And there has to be casualties, and the chief constable would be gone day one.
And that would be a great example, wouldn't it? And that would, and it's similar to what Trump is doing now in America. He's not messing about.
No.
He's not giving people the benefit of the doubt because they've had the chance, haven't they? And the chief constable of Manchester Police must have known about that Quran thing. I'm convinced he will have known about it.
Even if he didn't, it's his force. If he didn't and he's against it, that just means he's incompetent. He's running an incompetent force. He hasn't got the right staff under him. Hasn't got the right structures, the right policies. However you deal this out now, every way it's his fault. It's his fault if he was bullied into it by Andy Burnham. It's his fault if he did it because he was fearful that the Muslim community might riot. However you deal it, it's his fault. He needs to be braver. He needs to be more independent. He needs to follow the law. He needs to stop being bullied. He needs to stop being so politicized. He needs to stop being incompetent. He needs to pick better senior officers. However you look at this, I can't see how it's not his fault.
A lot of this, we're talking about multiculturalism being our strength. Multiculturalism is all about embracing Muslims, Muslim religion. They're now talking about
It's more than that. It's about embracing everything that is non-white English Christian.
Yes, correct.
So it's not necessarily about Muslims. It's about it's about Christian Nigerians.
Yes, yeah.
Who are involved in witchcraft. So what do? We then have the Met Police set up an anti-witchcraft department in the Met Police.
Yeah.
Not doing Muslims. It's about anything that's non-white, non-English, non-Christian, and we celebrate it.
And that's the point, isn't it? It always seems to be for these obscure or more mainstream religions, but never to the benefit of white English Christian people, or people like me, just normal British people who... So this
it's always for failed cultures, because we have to do something to save them because they're failed cultures.
Yeah.
So we either integrate them and assimilate them into society, which they don't want to do, in which case we have to change the rules, bend the rules, put different things in place so these failed cultures won't look so failed in this country.
And in doing that, we're accepting behaviours that are not native to this country. And I think this is the problem. That because we're trying to embrace multiculturalism, we're then saying, as a result of multiculturalism, if this is something your religion or your culture does, it is acceptable. And we had the example last week where we were talking about guys hanging around outside of school, just had a little chat saying, this isn't a cultural norm here, basically.
But this has been going on for a very long time.
Yes.
Why did we ever allow Jews to move here and continue male circumcision?
Yeah, we shouldn't have.
Well, why did we allow that?
Yeah.
In the 70s, why did we force everybody on motorbikes to wear helmets, apart from Sikhs?
Yes, I remember that.
We've been doing it for a long time, making concessions to different groups all the time.
Yeah, boiling the frog. We've been doing it bit by bit, and now it's overwhelming us.
Yeah.
So the latest survey, we're just going with multiculturalism. The latest survey is saying that the UK population is now going to grow by 5 million, and by 2032 is going to be 72.5 million people, and that is entirely through immigration, that growth.
Yep.
So we're seeing all this stuff happening, we're hearing all these stories, we're hearing all the horror stories in Europe. Sweden is now in chaos, we're hearing that, even though they've stopped immigration. But we're looking to get another 5 million immigrants in here.
And if we have Labour 5 years, then that'll be true. Depending how soon we can get rid of Labour, then it'll stop. Whoever comes in next I cannot foresee how they carry on with this mass migration. Whoever gets in next. Yeah. But Labour won't change.
And just some stats out on economic activity. This is from 2021 related to the census. Apparently, economic inactivity, not activity, in Arabs, blacks and Pakistanis are typically 40% above, whereas white British inactivity is only 23%. So we're basically finding out that these cultures, these people we're allowing to come here, and mainly it is now black, Pakistani, Asian people, their levels of economic activity are massive compared to British people, white British people. That's why
they come here, for the benefit state. People have been saying this for decades and decades and decades, and the government have lied to us and lied to us and lied to us. But the amount of inactivity now in the migrant community is higher than it's ever been, because we now have open borders.
Yeah.
So, we'd have some unemployed migrants 20, 30 years ago, but they had to apply for a visa, they had to trick the way to get here, pretend they were a student. Where now our borders are wide open and people are just flooding in.
Yeah.
And I can't remember the figure now, I think it was like 60% of all migrants from sub-Saharan Africa can't even read or write in their own language. That's the quality the migrants were getting.
How are they getting in then? They can't be passing any tests, can
No,
they?
but now it's open borders, so it's the boats.
Oh, I see.
It's coming now. You know, if the
Somalian doctor comes in, he can bring 20 of his relatives with him.
And it's no stuff like that. You know, you come as one of your friends, you chip in together, and you fund somebody in your village to get to the UK as a student. They get to the UK as a student, then they bring 8 relatives. And you're one of the relatives because you helped chipped in to get him there. Or you fund his illegal crossing of the channel, knowing once he gets here, 2-3 years later, he may get citizenship, in which case he can bring 10 family members. So all this is a scam, it's a con, just to get here, because even though we think England's turning into a shithole, it's still paved with gold compared to the shithole where they live.
Yeah, no, we still have a high GDP, which is dropping every year, but it's still higher than most countries.
Yeah.
And this government seems intent on saying, "Oh, we've got a high GDP, so we need to give it to the rest of the world." That's what seems to be happening, isn't it? We're hearing more and more horror stories. Labour is also watering down the border laws. I don't know if you heard this as well. So they're changing something to do with the age, recognition of age or things like that, basically making it easier now for illegal immigrants to become citizens of the country. That's changing. But it goes further than just... So I think it's interesting, isn't it? What we've talked about here is, we've talked about uncontrolled immigration and then a government who is then favouring this uncontrolled immigration and these immigrants ahead of their own people in a massive way. It even extends to charities. There's a charity called the MFF, the Muslim Family Foundation, and their charity status is currently being looked at by one of the regulators. And within the foundation, they promote things. They say things like controlling is caring. So controlling a woman is caring for her. Tell women to lower their gaze if a non-family member is in the house. Ask for permission from their husbands to go out and do with the shopping. So we've got a charity here. So this has got charitable status. We presume we get charitable funds as well. And it's advocating and promoting, again, totally anti-British values. So it's not just the police now on their side. Even charitable organisations now are being favoured ahead of the UK population.
First thing, that's not really a charity. It's a scam charity.
Yeah.
They've created themselves as a charity and tick the boxes because they can then get free money, free grants.
Apologies, ladies and gentlemen. From this point onwards, the podcast audio just crumbles away. We have no idea why. It happens every now and again, but we're tech cavemen, so we try our best. So unfortunately, there's only half an episode on this one. But next few days, we're going to release the new episode, so look forward to that one as well. Thank you, and we're sorry.